I was just kind of disappointed that time where he was the bad guy in episode 2. Oh, we're going to see a lot more of him. And then he immediately gets killed off. So this had already been spoiled for me, but then it got double spoiled for me when I saw a GIF, my first ever GIF of him just getting killed.
Wow.
And I was just like, what is going on?
Why?
So it was like the first 15 minutes, or the first big thing that happened in the Revenge of the Sith got spoiled for me, not once but twice. Hi there and welcome to Two Wheels Podcast. I'm your host Liam Reedy, and today we're talking about Star Wars prequels, talking about episodes 1 to 3. I'm here with Sam Moore, first time caller, long time listener and friend of the podcast. Before we get into it, I just want to say thank you for giving us a download. Really appreciate you doing so. We're well over 2,000 unique downloads, and we've got loads coming up for the month of May. We've got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We've got Moon Knight, the Disney Plus series, and we've also got Rogue One, dipping back into Star Wars in the month of May. If you want to help out the podcast, hop on over to shop2reels.com. Over there you can get yourself t-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. That shameless plug aside, let's get into the podcast. I feel like we're in a little bit of a weird period for Star Wars.
I totally agree. It's not quite limbo. It's kind of like not sure where it's heading.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like you get the impression that Disney don't know where it's heading at this point.
Because they've announced so many films, or even they've announced like 2 different trilogies that have like not materialized. Yeah. I feel like that's quite an indication of like what's happening.
I mean, if I were Disney, I'd be doing the utmost amount of planning and like focus groups and censor groups on what was it about the sequels that didn't quite land with everyone.
I think with, not to go about too far back, but with the acquisition in 2012.
Yeah, just after Marvel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's a very clear indication that they didn't have a big overall plan, which should have been the first thing you do.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't want to use George Lucas's treatments, which he said he gave over to them, even if you wanted to completely ignore all of those, which they kind of did and kind of didn't, then the next thing you would do is be like, well, okay, we need our unique plan, our plan. But we're not going to get too. I'm not going to get too sequel trilogy
that's
heavy.
That's a long conversation.
That's a long conversation for a little bit ways down the road, I think. But the reason we're here is because of the prequel trilogy. Now, I saw a post from Secret Cinema. I went to the Secret Cinema Empire Strikes Back like 2015, I want to say, and they obviously it's May the 4th. So on the time of recording, so they put a post out, and I said that this is the like the best one that they've done, and then I was writing this this essay on how how Disney, like, it would be good to do this another Star Wars Secret Cinema, but for like the prequels. I even was going to suggest doing it for the sequel trilogy, just for The Force Awakens. Yeah. But, I then was like, yeah, but you could do the prequels, but the current rights holders, they just don't want you to remember that those exist.
No.
And I was just waffling on, and I just, after about 2 minutes, I closed the Instagram app. I was just like,
shut the comment off.
Yeah, just no one needs to hear this.
I've took myself out of it. I can't do it now.
But I do feel like that's a little bit true, because, they've decided to really pick and choose what they want you to remember about the prequels.
Having watched them again recently, and I don't think I'd seen the fully remastered ones that came out. Like, was it like a couple of years ago where they fully rebuffed them?
Yeah,
I think they've when you look at the new CGI that they've put in there over all the the characters, I think they hold up. Like I was expecting when I was watching Phantom Menace the other day to get like a bit ropey Jar Jar and you know, trying so hard to overlook his dialogue, and yet the CGI and the CGI wasn't an issue for me anymore. I was totally on board with it, and I thought, oh yeah, this feels like a Star Wars Today kind of film again. You know, overlooking certain characters, I suppose, and the dialogue. But I think they'd really spun it around, but they'd obviously factored in that there is an audience looking across to you.
Yeah.
That still kind of cherish these films.
Yeah.
Because we've obviously got a big childhood impact factor here. Like for me, I think I went to see it obviously probably 2 weeks after it came out in, I want to say 99, 97. And my mum and dad took me and my brother to see it at our local Hatfield Galleria.
Yep.
And
R.I.P.
They didn't tell us what we were going to go see.
Oh, really?
And at the point, it was actually my mum that introduced me to Star Wars through. She had the video box set of A New Hope to Return of the Jedi.
Brilliant.
Big fan. Had a few of the toys at that point. And then when I saw a Phantom Menace, it just blew my mind. Like my brother and I were absolutely hyped about it. You know, we'd have we got the action figures, some of the ships from that era. Naboo Starfighter was like the coolest thing ever.
Yes, mate.
And I went mad for it. You know, we were. It was a real kind of, I don't know if it was right to say a bonding moment, but it certainly elevated our engagement with Star Wars, and kind of we played a lot more together with Star Wars. And I think that kind of, you play whatever you play with your siblings, but that was definitely a big factor for me and him back then. And I think as the other films came out, because I wouldn't say I was a knowledgeable kind of film critique-y kind of person. Yeah. I was just in awe of all the action and the fun in the films that they were back then.
We were the perfect age for just consuming it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I mean that in kind of, like a couple of ways. One for just, even now I feel like it's hard for me to. It's not hard for me to really critique it, but it's really hard for me to really take it to task, I guess. It's probably the only way I could describe it. But I think that in 99, when it came out, I was 8. And I'd gone to Florida with my family and my friend's family as well. We'd gone like on a joint holiday. And obviously they didn't plan this, but it was out like maybe a couple of weeks before the UK. That's just how it was. You seem to forget that the UK and Europe used to get kind of the bad rap, well, just the short end of the stick really in terms of like release dates, and because the internet wasn't such a prevalent thing, it was just there wouldn't be leaks or anything. It would just be like someone has heard something like this has happened. We went to I think we just drove past when you're like driving in America, and we just drove past like one of these like massive cinemas in the middle of nowhere, and it was just like the most dingy place you've ever seen. There was only twice I've been to.
It's like every movie theater in any 80s film, basically, isn't it? Yeah.
It was kind of like I've only been to 2 cinemas in America. One where they played Planet of the Apes in New York, and like half the screen was like cut off, and everyone was like complaining and like chucking popcorn.
Yeah, that sounds complaint-worthy.
It was it was really funny, and because it was just like everything that could go wrong with a film or projection of a film went wrong, and me and my dad were just looking at each other like, what is going on? But then this one was just like, it came out the same time as the South Park movie, and I just remember eating this like disgusting popcorn, and it was like is it like cheesy puffs? It was like cheesy puff flavor, because of like obviously like a movie tie-in, and it was like really disgusting, but I just didn't care because I was like watching the new Star Wars, something that I'd been waiting 2 whole years for, from 97 to 99, like compared to other people who've been waiting since the 80s.
I can still kind of visualize my excitement when I first saw that trailer on TV, because obviously, like you say, internet not big back then, no real flurry of YouTube videos flying everywhere, and when you see that on telly or pre a film, you're like, oh my god, there's another Star Wars. And
I think they did a little teaser in the special edition. In the special edition VHSs, I think either there was some behind the scenes footage where it was all about like the changes that they'd made. Obviously, a big point of contention is like the quote unquote update. Which, I mean, I was brought up on it, so I don't really, I'm not really too bothered. And I mean, it's updated it a little bit, and I know that's just our version. I believe like we can't really tell any difference. We would probably look back and say, oh, that looks a bit.
Yeah, like
today's... But the originals, I'm going to praise. The very originals, the theatrical cuts, I guess. Because they're the original. We had a little bit of update. There's a little bit of CGI here. Some of it works, some of it doesn't quite work. But I believe in one of the in the clips where they're doing the behind the scenes, at the very end, I believe there's a shot of George Lucas at a desk, and he writes on a bit of paper Star Wars Episode 1, and then it just like cuts. So like I vaguely remember that, either that or it's being typed, or it's like he takes the bit of paper where it's got it's like a script, so he's obviously typing it up, and then he's got like the first page, and it says Star Wars Episode 1. It doesn't have a title or anything, it just says Episode 1, and then that's the last shot of this I guess like a featurette. And so obviously seeing that when I'm like 7 or 8, I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna make another one. Yeah. Obviously I'm a bit confused because I'm about 6, where I'm just like Episode 1, because they just changed it to 4, 5 and 6.
Plus we've been obviously grown up on the Marvel films, that you always know there's going to be something else coming. At that point it was kind of like, oh, it's just
there's just 3 films.
We were happy.
It wasn't. Yeah, exactly. Oh, we were very happy.
We were very happy with the 3, and then we're getting more.
I was good. Yeah, there was. It piqued the interest before there was any type of Although I was about to say there's no internet hype, but at the time the Phantom Menace trailer was the most downloaded video on the internet ever. At that point, I think that was probably 98. Was probably, and I mean, no guesses as to why. First Star Wars movie since '83.
Yep.
It's gonna be. It's going to be everywhere. And
again, this is probably because I was 9 years old at the time, or 8 years old at the time, and didn't have access to the internet as much as I do every second of today.
Yeah.
I do wonder, looking back, if there were those like leak articles like we have today about, this is in the works, someone's seen on set, someone's seen, I wonder if that was all happening back then.
But absolutely no one could see it. Someone's just like like forums and stuff like that were probably a bit more prevalent back then as well. So it was just like someone's got these very real leaks, and because the internet's not so prevalent, it's just like there'd be like 10 people who know, or like 100 people who know, and then out of those 100, probably maybe a quarter or maybe half are just like fake, just like I don't know who you think you are, but like this is bullshit. And he's just like, but I know what's happening. There's going to be this in the new Star Wars movie. It was thinking back to it. It's such a weird but like good time, especially at that age, and especially with like something like Star Wars. And I mean, for the Phantom Menace even more so than the other 2 in this trilogy, because it was the first one since '83, it was absolutely everywhere. And I mean, like, when I was in America, everything was branded Star Wars. Pepsi, like, just potato chips, everything had Star Wars on it.
I can still visualize the shelves in the toy stores, and particularly the Lego aisle. Every box was a Star Wars Episode 1 set, and nowadays you get a shelf for each kind of sort of like
and toys are like less of a thing, physical toys, less of a thing.
Toys R Us, God rest its soul. Like
might be making a comeback.
The long aisles of just like where are you heading to? I want Star Wars section. I'm going straight to the Star Wars section. I'm like looking Micro Machines and the Lego. It was element.
It was a great time to be a kid as well, especially with. I know this is probably not for an adult, not for a mother or father.
This is going to weigh in. This is going to weigh into my view on Star Wars and the various eras. I think. I totally feel that 1 to 3 was certainly aimed at us.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It was. You had the nostalgia factor for our grown-ups.
Yes.
Who were like, "Oh, Star Wars is back. I want to enjoy this with my child," type thing. My son, my daughter, and then. I feel that's kind of a similar principle with the sequel trilogy and where the grey shades come in from all the various views. So if you had, let's say, original audience, not as huge fans of the prequels, and then you get the prequels audience who are not as big fan of I don't think anyone was. I don't think originals or prequels were as bigger fans of the sequels. I just felt that they were not marketed at us.
Probably not.
They were not written for you and I or our parents. I don't feel was my approach. I mean, I had that conversation with someone at work who despises them.
The sequels?
The sequels, and he couldn't get his head around them. And I said they weren't for you.
Yeah,
I just
even though they should have, not should have been. That's probably the wrong word. They should have been open for they should have been a little bit for everyone. Which is kind of like the whole thing for the original movies. As I was talking to someone else who you don't see them as kids' movies, and George Lucas didn't see them as I'm making a kids' movie.
No.
The only thing he really wanted to do was make a film that him and his friends wanted to see, which is like, that's just the way it went for him. Where he's just like, I'm not trying to make. I'm not trying to make it too kiddie. I'm not trying to make it just for adults. He could have had it, obviously it wouldn't have worked out quite as well maybe if it was leaning towards like the sci-fi of that era or the cinema of that era, which was very adult, and for him to turn a corner and it be for everyone. I believe the prequels is a little bit less for everyone. I feel like it's the middle ground where it's like, look, it's a Star Wars film. It can be enjoyable for everyone, but there's a lot of lore dumping in this trilogy. Let's put it that way, because of how much backstory it has to explain, leading up to 3 films that you've already seen.
But I would imagine at this point, we've had a ton of Star Wars comics that backs that up. George has probably been sitting on it for however long now. How much he wants to pack into these 3 films. And I would imagine, going by all the Comic-Cons that date, he knows that there's a captive audience that want to see more Jedi, that want to understand more of the background to that kind of. Let's be honest, it was a Jedi trilogy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Everyone was like totally up for the Jedis, and me being one of them as well.
Yeah.
He was just trying to illustrate so many points to get across for the Jedi. I felt that they kind of overshadowed what you perhaps had more fun with in the original trilogy, with the space battles and the exploring the planets, the different races having more screen time and a bit more valuable in the plot, I suppose.
They are very different to the original movies, but in some ways they do retain the I want to say magic of like Star Wars. Whether that was partly due to like PR and marketing, but the conversations I've had with other people who like Star Wars, even just from just liking Star Wars to maybe being a lot more fans like you and me, it is a little bit like the fact that they were the fact that there was 3 years between each built a bit of hype, which I don't believe really happened with what had become a yearly turnover for Disney to start with. So, and as we're going to talk about Rogue One in one of our next podcasts, it's not going to be the next one, it'll be the one after, because we'll be doing Doctor Strange. But the next one, we'll be talking about Rogue One, where, for me, it felt disjointed coming out in between the sequel trilogy movies, but is the one I connected to most as being a Star Wars movie.
I think when it came out, I said to about 3 people that was my favorite Star Wars film.
Yeah. Again, that's
and I think Force Awakens had come out by that point. Hasn't
yeah.
it?
It became out the 1 year prior, and I thought to myself, this is more of a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's tonally different,
it felt much more grown up, didn't it?
Oh yeah,
for a
100%.
Star Wars film. I know we said they're not for kids, but
Yeah.
that was a war film set in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And struck a lot of the right tones
And
had the right kind of nods to here and there. And I know there's Princess Leia's CGI'd, but it was still the right nod in that sense that we had to see that moment, I think.
Yeah, I feel like Rogue One was a little bit more mature. It was kind of like we were saying that there's these certain movies coming out later weren't really aimed towards us, but this one really was.
I think that's a very key word here, mature.
Yeah, mature.
And then we hop back to episode 1 with the lovely Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, mate, so...
And very little Anakin Skywalker and his band of Tatooine little group of friends that somehow know how to pod race.
I mean, that is a stretch when you think about it.
It's like... But that's my point. 9 years old, you don't care about any of the sense of it all, do you? You really didn't like.
And you really shouldn't. Even though, looking back, so we'll start off obviously with the Phantom Menace. With the Phantom Menace, when I'm watching it back, I am trying to critique, but I can't detach from how it made me feel a long time ago.
And that's my same point as well.
Yeah.
I can't knock it because I know how much joy it brought me.
And I'm sure older people who are older in 99 and people who are younger now who didn't grow up with it, I'm sure that their critique is probably a lot more damning. You know, I feel like it's probably a lot truer to. Actually, I don't want to say that. I'd just say it's of a different perspective and probably one that's a little bit of a clearer view. But I just can't detach really from what I felt in 99. Even though over time, some of the blemishes, you've been able to pick them out, you know. Yeah. Let's not say, like, I'm not going to say it's like a perfect movie.
Perfect film.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. But I can let so many blemishes slide. Let's talk about the kind of orangey pink elephant in the room that is Jar Jar Binks as a character. So at the time I thought was a CGI marvel, but also at the time I didn't like the character even when I was 9. And it was aimed at me.
I could be wrong, but in a lot of the Star Wars films, do you find the accents seem to lean in one direction?
Accents kind of, yeah. I mean, it's not good record.
No, like I was,
especially in this movie. If I'm being honest,
I was really picking up on that. I was like, this sounds quite.
That's kind of racist.
Yeah,
it's a little bit that, and the I mean,
he's an orange alien. He can't be racist. But,
yeah, okay, yeah.
but
but they've definitely put or to be fair, the decision is an amalgamation of like George Lucas's directing and Ahmed Best's acting. So I'm a little bit like it's the whole of the blame can't really rest on either shoulders. It's just kind of a poor choice.
I think if he was in it for comic relief, it was a little bit of a misfire. If that was the goal,
I think they've overshot. I feel like they've really overshot. I don't think they've tried to lowball themselves by like, no, not enough comedy. They're just like, no, more comedy.
It's kind of like you got super serious, slick Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yes.
And then overtly goofy, clumsy Jar Jar in the same moment together. It's like, oh, this doesn't feel like this would naturally go like that, you know.
No.
That mean, did you read up on the Plan B theories of Jar Jar?
No, what were they?
Darth Jar Jar.
Oh, okay. Well, I've
I was like, ooh, that's an incredible curveball. If that was where he was going with that,
would have been a massive curveball, and I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't have sold for me. But either way, I thought interesting premise. But yeah, the idea of that happening pretty slim, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I love the memes, like, you know, where there's just like so many memes, like
Yeah.
Jar Jar is the actual leader of the Sith. But yeah, I just feel like it was just they have just kind of tried too hard. The comic relief stuff in the original trilogy came from, I know it came from primarily a couple of characters, but I feel like it wasn't every second they were trying to go for a gag, you know, like Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. It is just kind of his acting is funny, and then moments come out of him reacting to other people, you know, and being in certain situations where they've tried to sort of do a similar thing with Jar Jar, and they have just, I don't want to say it like this, but they have just tried too hard.
Yeah. And your key point there was the whole, in original trilogy, it's characters bouncing off each other.
Yeah.
Jar Jar was literally just flying in his own orbit of
Yeah.
humor, wasn't he? It was...
It's and I mean, it's a whole different scenario for the sequel trilogy, which, I mean, loads of people have written and done like videos on everything you can think of to do with the sequel trilogy. So it's going to be hard to kind of talk about that later down the line, probably in a couple of years. It's going to be hard to kind of say something new about it. But what I will say is that people have kind of pointed out that it's got a little bit like Marvel-fied. Is that a word? It's not a word, but they've gone the Marvel route of trying to make quippy one-lines.
Yeah.
Right. For every character, probably except for Kylo Ren. So it's a little bit like you've lost sight of what the comic relief that works by a long shot. Yeah. And you've tried to supplement that. You've tried to make good on that by having every character try their hand at a bit of comedy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's all right for serious characters to
if
have
you go back
fun.
If you go back to the original trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Solo, fair to say, quite a leader in the comedy sort of special lines.
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Because of his character.
But Luke Skywalker, can't think of that much that was too funny with him. And that's probably, you know, you need the serious ones or the key leaders in that you can stick with consistently. And, you know, Solo's going to deliver a sarcastic comment every once in a while.
He's also like he's the audience in that trilogy. You know, we're on his journey. It's the reason why it's called the Skywalker Saga now. Yeah. And it's a little bit like it would be out of the blue for especially in that time where he's like, his eyes are wide open, you know, he's like looking at all these new worlds and stuff. And for him to be a little bit like, you know, for him to be anything like Han Solo, where he's just like pessimistic and like really sarcastic, that would have been really out of left field. And then, I mean, in the end, they ended up transitioning him into someone who does try his hand at comedy. But, you know, again, I'm going to try to steer the boat a little bit.
Keep correcting us.
But, you know, they overshot it, and I believe it gets a really bad rap, and it's obviously horrific that, you know, the actor who played him, you know, Ahmed Best, he you know gets a bad rap for what's happened, which is unfortunate. You know, it kind of leans into like how kind of toxic the fan base can be in certain areas. One place that I don't think it is really that toxic is the rest of this prequel trilogy. No. Now that the sequels have happened, I believe that any real hatred towards the majority of the movies has now kind of like dissipated. It's kind of like just fallen off. You know, I remember a time, especially after like a couple of years after Revenge of the Sith, because, you know, Revenge of the Sith is kind of widely regarded as like the best one of the three.
I'm with there. Yeah, I'm on that side.
So once that had come out, people genuinely had like this kind of like tunnel vision view that Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, for all their faults, are just like horrific.
Yeah.
I remember it just being like, obviously we talked about it being ours from a childhood perspective, and I just couldn't agree with it. I was just like, I'm not having any of this slander. Even though over time I've seen more faults. At that time I was just like, I don't want to hear it. So this
Rose tinted goggles on.
I feel like there is a little bit of that for me, but then over time it's just been like, well, yeah, there's some faults with it, but look how worse it could have been. Yeah, look how it could have been. And so with the prequels, and especially we're talking about the Phantom Menace now, like it's got no plot. That was one thing that I knew from the start. This is the one thing the first thing I was able to kind of grasp from other critics of the film was like, there is no plot. And even as like a teenager, I was able to just be like, yeah, you're right. Like, it is kind of like you're just in the situation. It doesn't really have a drive. Majority of the movie has no drive. It has no plot. And I was just like, yeah, that's right. Still kind of good though. Still kind of really enjoyed it though.
It's like Darth Maul, double lightsabers.
Yeah. There's things about the Phantom Menace that really do, even for other people, do kind of like really drag it up. It just name me like one other film that has like a whole race in it that you're like, it's just really enjoyable, like the action in it. I'm not talking a car chase, I'm talking a race, something that can be like time consuming for a movie, and they go round in circles. I really like Formula One, but I am able to grasp that it's like 20 people going around in a circle really fast.
Yeah.
But because of the story and the stakes and just how well it was made, I feel like it's one of the gems of that movie that even people who don't particularly like the Phantom Menace, or who are like, yeah, it's a bit rubbish though, isn't it? But pod racing is like, that whole sequence is fantastic. And I remember, I think like the DVD or something has an extended.
Did you?
It's even better
because the extended one, which is what I watched the other day.
Yeah,
I was like, oh God, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
I forgot about this scene.
More shots, and it's just, it gives it a little bit extra, and doesn't take anything away from the film. It just adds a little bit to it. Yeah. It's just fun, and I genuinely had to think back. I was like, I don't have any other film where there's a race in it. I haven't seen Chariots of Fire in a long time. So
what was absolutely lovely about that pod race is that no one died. In all those horrific crashes, no one seemed to die. We're so PG Universal in Star Wars.
It's a bit of a miracle, isn't it?
We'll stab someone through the heart, but no one dies in a car race. Yeah.
There is one thing with that where I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, no one dies with all of these ridiculous.
Just the robots. It's just the robots.
Yeah, like the pit droids. But with the actual pod racers, I'm like, how did they all survive that? It's just like a bit of a meme where I'm completely okay with all of this ridiculous carnage, and they just like get up and like walk away. Whereas in Rise of Skywalker, when Rey crashes Kylo Ren's ship. Yeah. And it explodes, and he just like walks out, and I'm just like, that's just ridiculous. Why am I so hypocritical?
Yeah.
But yeah,
pent up tension with it. I think by that point everyone's just like watching it with a magnifying scope, aren't they? After freaking.
I remember seeing the trailer for Rise of Skywalker, and I was just like, I don't want to see this film,
but I have to.
What's going on?
But I have to see this to know what's happening.
But one film that it is a bit peaks and troughs with the Phantom Menace on rewatches.
Yeah, so that was what I said earlier. Like my order of, if I had to put the order to the 3, it changed.
Yeah.
On this round because of things in Phantom Menace that I noticed, and I was like, yeah, didn't notice that before.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, yeah, it's not not a deal breaker. I will watch it again.
Yeah.
And I will get my son to watch it at some point too, which I'm really looking forward to.
TikTok. It's only a matter of time.
I was like, oh yeah.
How forgiving were you of those things that you noticed? Were you just like, were you there with a notepad that was just like, well, that's another minus a half point?
It's more, I think for me, it's probably across that trilogy. It's the dialogue that I just really can't unhear once I've heard it. If you know what I mean.
100%.
No matter what's happening in the scene, the line that comes out is like,
is kind of like,
what
did you just say?
Would you have said that in real life?
Oh, in real life. And I mean, it's been one of the biggest things that people have critiqued about George Lucas.
And that is understandable. It's his story.
Yeah,
you know? I hope it's his story.
Yeah.
I hope he's not gone to the future and stole it from someone.
No,
this.
No, it's definitely his story. Yeah.
But he's not a writer, is he? Which I think everyone would agree on, regardless of this amazing story that he's created. The dialogue does slip in places for me.
Yeah, I mean
more so in Phantom Menace than I think the other two.
I don't know about that.
I've kind of I've slightly swung around a little bit on Attack of the Clones.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a little bit controversial because I think I'm the other way. But with the Phantom Menace, I believe. I mean, it was a bit of a. Do you think George Lucas knew that Darth Maul was going to be one of these fan favorites?
No, case in point, killed him off.
Yeah,
and yet he reappears.
I know,
down the line, which I'm not against, but it's that whole Marvel thing of killing someone, issue with multiverse, now everyone come back again.
Yeah,
if you build a great character,
just don't kill him off.
Let him be, or don't kill him off. Yeah, you're right.
I feel like the Darth Maul situation is the most prevalent retroactive retconning in media.
Yeah,
I believe, except for maybe. No, I think this is definitely more prevalent than that. The whole no, he's not dead. Like, because he's a fan favorite, and we've got an animated series now,
and we've had time to think this through, kind of thing, or come up with a.
I feel like that was probably one of the worst decisions for the prequel trilogy, was to kill off someone who.
So we're programmed to want to be the good guys, aren't we?
Yeah,
and role models. Correct if I'm wrong, he was possibly one of the best bad guys who were like, God, he's cool. Double lightsaber, and look at his moves.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be rooting for this guy or be excited by this guy because he's a baddie, but that totally swung me, I think, back there as well.
There was no one who was on the playground. There was no one who was like, I don't want to be Darth Maul.
No, I'll take you both on. It was like, I'll take you both on, wasn't
it? It was completely the opposite, really. It was. Yeah, I think it's just one of just a terrible. I don't think it was a necessarily terrible decision. Obviously, he's done it for the story reasons, for like Obi-Wan to overcome something, and for his master to die, and for him to transition to a Jedi master.
He's Jedi Knight, I think.
Was it?
Well,
oh no, yeah, that's right. So from Padawan to Knight.
If you're not a Padawan, everyone seems to call them master.
Yeah,
it's like a Mister title, or a Doctor title.
So yeah, I understand in that regard why they've killed off Darth Maul, but it was just like, it would have been cooler, and it would have been. I think it would have been more interesting, to have another dynamic where it kind of transitions through the whole of the trilogy. I'm just interested, like a lot of people, what Darth Maul would have been like during the Clone Wars, during episode 2, if he made it to episode 3, but they shot themselves in the foot by having there can only be 2. I don't know. Is that only come in this? I believe Sith as a word is only mentioned for the first time in the prequels.
Please forgive me, Star Wars lore experts.
Oh, I'm sure we'll make some mistakes, but
my understanding is that the rule of 2 was implemented by, was it like the way back in like Old Republic, wasn't it? After all the Sith died back then.
Yeah.
So. But when you get into the likes of Clone Wars, I know we've touched on that, Asajj Ventress, for example, Force user, but I don't think she's classed.
She's not a Sith.
As a Sith.
Yeah.
General Grievous, to some respect, trained in the arts of lightsaber battle. Obviously not Sith because he's not a Force wielder. So I'm kind of with you in the sense of the rule of two things still sticks.
But they still circumvented it by finding a way to have these other characters. They had obviously they have Count Dooku, who, I mean, he goes by Darth Tyrannus, but no one really calls him it. Do you know what I mean? So you could have just
that one moment right at the end of the film. It's like,
so I'm just like, you could
Lord
have
Tyrannus,
just had him.
oh, you're Lord Tyrannus.
You could have just had him just still be Count Dooku, but he's evil now.
Yeah, that would have
could have still had Darth Maul and Darth Sidious, and they could have off Darth Maul during the Clone Wars or something.
I suppose it's like a code name in some respect, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like that. Yes, these are all just things where they had zero plans, and then they were like, I mean, that was pretty cool. Shall we do more of that? When he's already dead.
He was kind of a big deal. We should.
We'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back. It'll be fine.
Yeah, he was never dead. He got cut in half. He was never dead.
It's like, Dave, we want to bring back Maul. Huh? He's dead. It's like, just work it out.
Yeah, yeah. Dave Filoni. I mean, we'll get to a bit of the Clone Wars, but with the Phantom Menace, I just it's just there's like a sheen on it where I can just watch it. There's no. Yeah, there's some cringy bits, and the CGI is getting on a bit.
I mean, it's not quite PlayStation 1 pixels bad, but I've got the DVD cassette, the first DVD cassette, like the box set that came out when DVDs came out back then, and it doesn't hold up, does it? Unfortunately,
no. But I feel like there is some shows that really hold up. It is a little bit like some Marvel now, where it's like the consistency is kind of really wild. I feel like the most consistent Marvel films are, for me, like Infinity War and Endgame, where I don't think there's too many bad shots at all in terms of CGI.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the other Marvel films have some.
There's a questionable moment.
Yeah, there's a questionable moment in all of them, and like the internet will be the first thing to point it out. And I feel like, God, if the internet was as such a dominating feature of movies that is now, back then, even back then, it would have been like, God, 5 years later, it'd be like, wow, look at this shot. It's the texture of like skin. So for like creatures or like Jar Jar, things like that haven't really held up well. I'm not going to say they're bad, because for the time they're really good.
No, yeah, absolutely.
But at the moment, in terms of holding up, because I believe like Jurassic Park, like the CGI in it holds up fantastically, except for maybe like one shot.
Which one?
I don't know the names of dinosaurs. So the long-necked dinosaur,
okay.
The long-necked gentleman. The shot, it kind of looks like
when they're coming. Is this where it's feeding in the tree?
Yeah.
No, because that's
practical.
Actually, that's practical.
So when they first see
in
the first dinosaur,
and
it's kind of like a mid shot, and like the texture of like the dinosaur's skin just doesn't look quite right to the eye. And I think that's the only shot where I'm like, it doesn't quite hold up. But it is the shot, like it's the money shot. It's one of the most famous shots in the film and of cinema of the time. And because one shot doesn't hold up doesn't make it bad. It's the same with this movie. There's a lot of good CGI in it, but mainly for things that aren't organic, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. It's more like the so like the droids. When they're CGI, they look good, I think. Or on a more recent, do they not hold up?
I think the movements of the droids in Phantom Menace are reasonable and fine.
Yeah.
C-3PO in Attack of the Clones, Droid Factory.
Oh, that's awful.
Does my head in.
Yeah, no. I was in Phantom Menace. I feel like the just normal battle droids. I feel like they still kind of hold up.
Yeah.
Again, it is just kind of like it's hard, especially back then. It was hard to get organic matter, especially things like skin and hair. It's still hard to get things like that right for a reason.
Yeah.
And even back then, it's just I just don't think that certain shots hold up. It does get better over time, and I think Revenge of the Sith. I don't particularly know of any. Can't remember too many shots where I was like, "Cool, that looks rubbish." And that was only that was 6 years later.
But I think from that point, obviously, technology
yeah,
and I think it actually improved with each film as
well.
Oh,
of course, yeah.
I know we'll go on to Attack of the Clones, but watching it again recently, I was in awe again of like Coruscant just being that close to
I
it.
know,
was
right? Yeah.
Like, God, the amount of detail in this city was
exactly
exaggerated.
And I mean, they had the shot redone for the special edition, where they have like the celebrations on Coruscant, which I don't even think they've talked about. They don't talk about a central world in the original trilogy, do they?
No,
don't think they do. So
don't touch on.
It's only something we see prior to this, rather than hear about. And then for people who have, who are bigger fans who have been like, oh, that's the city from the changes in the special edition, whether they like it or not. The introduction of a planet that is like just one big city. I mean, there are challenges, and it could have gone really bad. It could have gone really badly, and I think it's one of the central planets in Star Wars now from that point onwards, and it's good that they got it right over the course of 3 films. I think again, like you said, it just got better over time. See more of it in different ways, different movies.
And this might just be this is my subjective opinion. Of course, it's my subjective opinion. In Phantom Menace, I think it's fair to say the brightness of everything is a lot higher when you compare it to the likes of particularly Revenge of the Sith. Obviously, everything's got a lot darker and moody then, but I think it kind of transitions as well through Attack of the Clones. Notably, all right, some of it's at nighttime.
Yeah,
but I think that takes a bit of a tone move on the film as well, where we're talking about maturity of the films.
Yep.
If we're going to say it's a kiddie film, Phantom Menace is definitely the kiddie film. And as it goes through, I think you obviously get to the more mature. And I think that is to do with the darkness of the film visually as well.
And it's I feel like there was a bit of a mixture of the
too much sunshine. There was too much sunshine in Phantom Menace, basically, is what I'm saying. Even on Coruscant, there was too much sunshine.
It was the last one to be filmed using celluloid, was the Phantom Menace. And then after that, it's digital only. I feel like there is just there's a difference in look, as well as the I guess saturation, really. So I mean, there's a difference in what it feels like and what it looks like. I always feel like the Phantom Menace is, I mean, it's very high budget, but it feels a little bit more independent film.
Yeah,
and then the other two kind of fit together.
Yeah,
in a weird way that I totally can't really put my finger on.
Yeah, I think George, from memory, went heavy on the CGI for the next dude in terms of like green screens everywhere for everything, and you can tell between the two of those films that's very, 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 very used throughout. Whereas I think he tried to get a lot of the existing Tatooine set in, didn't he?
One of the things I think that sent him that other way is for the pod racing scenes, for the initial ones when like the pod racers aren't moving, they were all made, or like the majority of them were actually constructed, and then whilst they were filming in Tunisia, they all got destroyed in a storm, or like partially, like some would be completely destroyed,
beyond use, basically.
So, and I mean, that's a lot of his own, pretty much like his own money.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting some financial backing from 20th Century, but Lucas is a lot of it is his own money, going into Star Wars because it's George Lucas, and he just kind of saw that as like that's a complete write-off. That's a loss.
Not making that mistake again.
So yeah, exactly. I feel like
doing that again.
I feel like that's not like the only factor. Like it's not the one thing but it's a contributing factor to why there was a lot more CGI in stuff where in those other two films, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where you could have kind of think, well, you could have done that practically.
I'm trying to think if I'm trying to count up the number of planets they visit in Phantom Menace. So it's Naboo, Coruscant, Tatooine, right? So
Yeah, I don't think there's any
three.
others. Yeah,
Possibly one more in there somewhere, but definitely three. Then you jump to Attack of the Clones, and you've got Coruscant, Geonosis, Camino, Tatooine again.
Yeah.
Naboo again.
Yep.
That's 5 already. So I imagine hopping between all these places probably has a little attack on the purse string.
One thing I will give for Attack of the Clones is that Naboo, which I don't know whether they did this initially, but for a lot of scenes, especially like establishing shots, they did go to like locations. So they filmed in Italy.
I was going to say it's very Venice.
Yeah. It's
so Venice. Now that I've got my geography hat on,
it's and so I'll give it that they didn't do. They could have done everything green screen, because some of these establishing shots, I'm thinking, yeah, you could have done that CGI. It was even back then. It would have been an easy decision just to be like, we'll film on a green screen. Just pull the camera back, and we'll just But for them to not go whole hog, and I mean, it was like a bit of a weird time period where like this new technology meant that it was it was easier to make these things happen on green screen. That technology did exist before Star Wars, before other movies in the 90s and stuff like that. But this is when it became like readily accessible to use computer generated imagery on that scale.
Yeah.
It made budgeting, it really helped with budgeting constraints and things like that. And, for them to, in Attack of the Clones, really, for them to... It still gets a bad rap because there is a lot of green screen. But
I think that's my understanding of a lot of the gripes was, where's all the practical stuff gone? Why have you just relied on green screen? It's cheating.
It's the characters as well. Like in Attack of the Clones, you got like is it Dexter? His
the guy in the diner.
Yeah. That one, like looking at it now, I didn't even realize this till very recently that he has a mustache.
No.
Yeah.
But he's got such it's just like a grey fish.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. He's just like a amorphous blob, and it's just kind of that's I think something which rightfully like irks people. That it's like, well, you could have had a character that was a little bit better designed, or you could have just had like a person.
I don't know. I mean,
with a bit of practical, or you could have done something practically,
Yeah, no, I can see where you come from that. But I felt like the character of diner chef manager was very stereotypical of a diner today.
Yeah.
If I'm being fair to diner managers and chefs, but I believed it, at that point. But no, had no idea he had a moustache.
Yeah, and I can understand. I don't want them to change the character's traits necessarily, but I want them to just. I want to be able to look at it and be able to know what's going on.
Instantly go. CGI.
What is that?
Yeah, it's like,
it's unfortunately, I do feel with Attack of the Clones, with that, as much as you get the introduction of characters that are live action, there is, because of the scope, I feel like they really do double down, where they're like, look, we had Jar Jar Binks in the other one, but now we're going to have like 10 more characters that are CGI. I can believe why people are just like, I don't think that's good.
Yeah, it was almost like finding out you can do a new trick on a computer, isn't it? You want to just keep doing that trick sort of thing. And
honestly, I feel like that's 2002 or the year 2001 to around 2004. Like the whole of cinema was like, we can, you'd had the success of Toy Story, and even probably at that point Toy Story 2, and the whole world did go a bit like CGI mad. Which I feel like we've peeked our head over a little bit. We're using it a bit in more limited but like better capacities at this point in time. There's still some people that go to the well a bit too much, but this was like, it was brand spanking new to just be able to do all of this in CGI and it be like cost effective, and we're in that bit of a madness period of like 3 years where it was just everyone went a bit gaga for it.
It was I think it was majority that. I'm sure there would be time factors and budget factors to it as well, but his movie, he was like, I'm doing this.
His money at the end of the day.
I'm taking it, yeah.
But with I'll just touch the last bit on Phantom Menace before we completely go on to Attack of the Clones. It's just Duel of the Fates is still, I think, is as iconic as Star Wars
top
theme.
3 most iconic Star Wars tracks.
I'd say in the top 2. I'd say it's the Star Wars theme, and then I'd say it's Duel of the Fates.
Okay.
Only pipping Darth Vader's, like Imperial March.
Okay.
By the fact that it is just so epic, like
absolutely. And
Imperial March is more recognizable, I'd say, but Duel of the Fates is just more epic.
Yeah, the opera factor to it. It just totally sells a different note to the big triumphant Star Wars theme that starts the film off. I remember when that happened, that totally elevated that lightsaber fight. If you go back to the original trilogy, not putting them down, but the music was a lot more, the tempo of it never really got that high with a lightsaber fight, I don't think.
I mean, I don't think for the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight, I don't think there's any music. There's like
the start of the Falcon, and the Falcon flies off and it goes dun 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 dun.
Oh, right,
that starts that transition just as Obi-Wan snuffs it. Bless him. But then, all the other lightsaber fights are quite dark and moody, aren't they? Like the Return of the Jedi is obviously like an epic, triumphant father versus son.
It's very dark, obviously, because of the
then Empire Strikes Back is just Luke getting his butt handed to him, isn't it? So it's very Imperial Marchy kind of notes to it. And then I think that's possibly my most favourite thing of the prequels is how they treat the lightsaber battles in terms of visually and the backing tracks to them. So your point on Duel of Fates being number 2, my favourite track actually is Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
Nice.
Because it's got Duel of the Fates in it as well. It because that transitions into the Yoda and Palpatine fight as well, and there's Duel of Fates there as well. And I think it's possibly that battle, but again, the music makes the battle seem even more intense, and obviously the choreography of those lightsaber battles, man. I
mean, they turn it up to.
Did you try and replicate these like I did with
obviously.
the old?
So our friend Sean, he had Darth Maul's lightsaber, and I either had Obi-Wan's and Qui-Gon, or just Obi-Wan's. And I mean, as 8-year-olds would, try your best at
many a lightsaber broken.
Because they were like the fold away plastic ones, so they would fold out, but then you'd see as you're folding them back in, just like where the dents were, where they'd just been like folded from throwing them too hard at each other. But you are right. The lightsaber fights in this trilogy, they're like next level.
That's my favourite meme when you compare them to the sequels as well. How do we go from this, like, and then to like?
They see. I've heard this theory that basically because Disney's Disney.
Everyone forgot how to lightsaber battle.
Yeah, because Disney are Disney. They didn't really. Obviously, they had choreography. That's not even up for debate. But Disney want you to believe that lightsabers aren't these things that if you hit the other person, it'll cut their arm off, because that's too violent. Even though we've seen that already.
But it would.
They want you to believe they're more like baseball bats.
Okay.
And it's just like they just can't have this even though it's like an iconic this part of Star Wars, like the lightsaber is like as iconic as like any of the top tier icons of the series. But Disney are like it's like with the game Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
There's no if you cut someone in half, like it is just a baseball bat it's a light up baseball bat. Yeah. And
unlike Force Unleashed, where you can take people's heads and arms off,
it's just it's just the Disneyfication it got to the lightsabers. You know what I mean? Like the Disneyfication got to the characters, it got to the weapons, it got to everything. But with the prequel trilogy, it's the pinnacle of the series. It's the pinnacle of the action.
It's Lucas in his element, I think.
Oh, 100%.
I think he's looking at this going, "Nah, this can be cooler."
Even I really love the other. Well, I love the Luke and Vader battles because they are part of the story. It was the first, iterations of lightsaber fighting.
But the brief was different there.
The brief was totally different.
I recall an article saying like Hamill was told this is meant to be a heavy knight's sword type thing. You can't just fling this around like a stick type thing.
And then he sees them 20 years later, just like pirouetting.
What? He's one hand in that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
But one-handed stuff looks cooler. So yeah.
But yeah, you are right. I think it's just George Lucas. This is a part where George Lucas doesn't really, even though it's got ties into the story of like what's happening in the movie. It is just one bit where you can just be like, it's just going to be cool.
Yeah,
it's just going to look cool. We're going to get to the story bits of the fight. Which is, say Anakin getting his arm cut off in Attack of the Clones. Or, Qui-Gon dying in Phantom Menace, and obviously Anakin versus Obi-Wan, which, people have been waiting decades for. But the first kind of like 2/3 of every lightsaber fight is just like, wouldn't this be cool?
It's almost like a dance, when you see some of the moves, like just the body movements around, and it's pretty lights being flung around really fast in a nutshell. But just wanted to be one.
Yes,
I just wanted to be.
Just want to be. It was when you're looking at it. I mean, obviously, I think all of them. I mean, of the lightsaber fights, I'd say Attack of the Clones is the weakest, but I wouldn't say it's bad.
It's not
even when it's Christopher Lee, who at that point was probably in his late 70s, fighting a tennis ball.
Yeah, that
was kind of like.
I think when I looked up on all of that, I was like, oh, that's quite a hard thing to.
Yeah, I know,
do.
Right? Yeah.
Poor Christopher Lee.
I'm not gonna be, pretending to.
Such a prestigious actor, and he's literally fighting.
I don't know what must have been going through his head. He must have just been a little bit like. He's like, I didn't look at that contract.
I wonder if he sort of like looks looked back and was like, I should have just gone with Lord of the Rings.
He's just like, I didn't need to do Star Wars.
I mean, he was good. I didn't have any problems with his performance. He was very good in my opinion.
With Christopher Lee, he wasn't trying to be anything but the character that was set out for him, which was very much like, you're Christopher Lee, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's called Count.
You can totally see the Scaramanga in him.
You can see
the Scaramanga's there.
You can see, especially they called him Count. He's the most famous actor to play Dracula. Yeah. Lucas knew what he was doing when he was writing this character, whether he had Lee signed on or not to do it already. He knew what he was doing, or if it was rewrites where he's just like, I'm going to call him Count, and Count D. You know, like
Count D.
Count D. Do you know what I mean? So he knew what he knew what he was doing when he was writing for Christopher Lee. And you know, for him to kind of be, you know, like they had to do a different character to Darth Maul. Yeah. They couldn't just have like, yeah, it's going to be like Darth Maul, but it's the next movie because we killed him off. Yeah. They went the whole other way. They weren't like, oh, this martial artist, you know, this. I mean, obviously, the Phantom Menace is called the Phantom Menace because of Darth Maul, but they, you know, they could have had.
You feel it's called that because of Darth Maul, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I took that as
Sidious,
Palpatine.
Yeah,
because they knew that he was there.
Interesting.
But didn't know who he was.
It can be taken either way.
And then we're dipping into the all the Star Wars films and named wrong.
Ah, yes, I have seen that meme.
I was like, oh.
And I'm correct. Like, if they were all switched around, I wouldn't.
It would work.
Wouldn't batter an eyelid because it
work.
does work.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did go the complete opposite direction, which was a good idea, I think. And for them to get someone like Christopher Lee, prestigious actor, if I can get the words out, you know, he's got he can bring so much. I was just kind of disappointed that time where he was the bad guy in episode 2, and the way it ends is like, oh, we're going to see a lot more of him, and then he immediately gets killed off. Immediately gets killed off.
I was surprised by that too when I saw that. I was like, oh. Well,
do you know what, mate? Speaking of, you know, we speak on, you know, like the internet being so such a big factor for films or not. You know, like in the case of Phantom Menace, it was kind of wasn't. But with Revenge of the Sith, definitely was, because I got Count Dooku's death spoiled for me by someone who had already seen the film somehow. Someone I knew, and I just didn't believe them, like because they said it's like, I was like, oh, I wonder what like Count Dooku's like in this third film, like, yeah, and he's dead. He just goes, he dies in the first 10 minutes. I thought he was joking, you know, because that does sound like a joke, doesn't it? Like, oh, he's dead in the first 10 minutes of the movie, yeah. When you've just had a whole film of them building him up to be the leader of the Separatists, and you know the Separatists have the Death Star plans, yeah. And you know, what's Palpatine going to do next? X, Y, Z. What Palpatine's going to do next is just let him die, you know. And I was just like,
pretty much just switch the switch, don't you?
And I just remember just being in the film. I was just actually what happened before that. So this had already been spoiled for me, but then it got double spoiled for me when I saw a GIF. Saw my first ever GIF of him just getting killed. Wow. And I was just like, what is going on?
Why?
So it was like the first 15 minutes, or the first big thing that happened in the Revenge of the Sith got spoiled for me, not once but twice. Oh. And I was just like, oh god, I was more like, thank god I hadn't heard anything else about this film.
Oh, I don't think I remember spoilers back then.
Yeah, I think it was probably the first time I'd ever had anything in a movie spoiled for me.
That's a pretty big moment.
That's a big moment, isn't it?
God,
and I can't remember who I got spoiled for me, but I was talking to someone on MSN Messenger.
God, I hope it wasn't me. I do.
No, definitely not.
I don't know how I would have seen it before you.
No, definitely not. It's otherwise we probably wouldn't have this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd still be bitter.
It would be bitter, yeah. Totally. More Oakmill Park kickabout
yeah.
ever again.
With Count Dooku, I feel like it's a character that he gets fleshed out a little bit more in the Clone Wars series.
I liked the Obi-Wan and Count Dooku interaction.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I thought that was a bit underplayed. That could have been a bit of a longer scene.
Could have been a longer scene, could have had more interaction. It was a good dynamic, having Master of the Master.
I think that's why I wanted it. I want to learn more about what Qui-Gon was like.
And, kind of ironically, you're like, love these two in the scene, want to know more about Qui-Gon.
Yeah. And again, this is possibly where, Clone Wars, the amazing thing that it is. Mm. It's always lovely to say it in hindsight, but if it could have happened in between the films, that would have been wonderful.
Cool. If they banged out 8 seasons.
8 seasons in between the 3 years, or whatever it was between the films, it just would have helped the Anakin character.
I think so, yeah.
Problems, I think, a lot.
A lot of a lot of Anakin's redemption, not in the series, but like reception wise, is due to Clone Wars. And yeah, it is a little bit like, oh, I mean, the Clone Wars cartoon. Again, I was probably about the right age. I mean, it was just kind of a cool thing, but it didn't really flesh out anything.
No.
It was because they were just like 15-minute cartoons, for 2 series. For like, I mean, you can watch them all in like an hour and a half or something. It didn't really. It wasn't any character building. It was more just like, look, a cool cartoon.
Here's what happens right before Revenge of the Sith starts, kind of thing, isn't it? And
I mean, I'm kind of a little bit baffled why they didn't do that in the Clone Wars animated, like 3D animated one.
I only recall the 2 episodes where they're really long, and you get a really fast run through of Anakin developing from Padawan to Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
I just distinctly remember his little hair braid thing being cut off. But that went very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And what they missed in that series, which they capture in Clone Wars, is the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, the banter and the whole "you are my brother, Anakin's." Like, really? You don't? I don't get much of a brotherly vibe.
I mean,
from these 2 films, like you don't really strike me that you like each other that much in Attack of the Clones, and then come Revenge of the Sith, it's kind of like, oh, Bance.
Yeah, it's a little bit more established in Revenge of the Sith. Like you can kind of have a little bit of having a window into one part of the relationship to the next is like when you see it in Revenge of the Sith, you are a little bit like, oh, you can get it. But it is also, that's like just like the tip of the iceberg. And then if you literally look at it, it's like the Clone Wars is the rest, the animated series. It is just a little bit disappointing that it didn't come earlier. When you say about like the "You Are My Brother," it's like, I'm gonna have to go watch the Clone Wars series to actually see that. Which is just kind of unfortunate.
But that's the dialogue issues that we're
but it is good. I didn't like because I went to see obviously the animated. I think in like 2007 they had an animated film, didn't they?
Yeah.
To kick it off.
Clone Wars.
Yeah. Didn't even like it.
I found Ahsoka Tano very difficult to like in that. It was such a different take for Anakin Skywalker, which I now really appreciate.
Yeah.
But at that time I was like, oh, this is too different. I don't like different.
I don't like change. Again, not to toot it too much, but I don't think it wasn't aimed at us either. That is something that is a little bit.
Might be right.
Because at that time I was like 17, 18, so I don't think it was really aimed for me.
I was watching them legally-ish while I was at uni.
Yeah,
and it was kind of you got 3 hours a day to kill kind of thing. So I was just working my way through all of them. And the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars were a bit of a slog.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said to Sean.
And then you get to Ahsoka being sensible and smart, and it's like, oh. And then Anakin comes out a bit more of this less arrogant and more of a wiser kind of person. And you start seeing, you really get on this relationship with him and Obi-Wan. And then you get all the nice touches on all the other Jedi that are in there. You learn that Mace Windu is truly a dick, more so in the Clone Wars than in the actual films. And Samuel, love you and everything, but
definitely
Mace Windu was not a cool dude.
It's a good series to accompany these movies. There's always going to be a want for more Star Wars. There's always going to be a want for more of like this time period because of the characters, because what they become, the characters as well. So there's always going to be the want for more content in that space, And I feel like the Clone Wars, and it just gets better over time. The Clone Wars series. You are correct, 100%. The first 2 series, and there's a lot of episodes as well. So it's like, and they're all out of sync. They're all out of sync, which at first just threw me right off. I was just like, I'm not having this. make it linear or just I'm not going to bother. And then coming back once there was like quite a few seasons, yeah, kind of had to force myself to get through the first two. But then after the first two, again, the animation gets better, the voice acting gets better, some of the stories get better, and then, I mean, the last series which they revived after the Disney merger.
Powerful stuff.
It's top tier Star Wars.
Powerful stuff. Yeah.
You might people these in this current era loving the Mandalorian, saying that that's top tier Star Wars. I'd say that and the last series of the Clone Wars are probably some of the best Star Wars and definitely some of the best Disney Star Wars.
But again, unfortunately, I feel like that's a lesson from the sequels.
What you say that they
took the time to process it, work it out, think it through. How is this going to hit on the whole heartstrings? How's this going to hit on all the Star Wars lore over there? And
I mean, we really only have one person to thank for trying to drag up that, and that's no, we don't have just one person, but we have one person who's intrinsically linked,
consistent in it,
intrinsically linked between what the fans have had prior, and then that transitioning well to what we're getting now. Dave Filoni. So
I think one of the quotes I saw around, I don't know if it was him that said it or if it was just someone writing about him, it was more like, I'm not overwriting the sequels or the prequels. I'm just improving them.
Right.
He's just adding to the background, to the flavor and everything. It's like,
or you could just
it's one way to look at it.
Or you could just override them.
Yeah. we wouldn't mind.
But
slid off of Attack of the Clones there, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I said my opinion had swayed a bit more on this. Now I remember in my youth it was my least favorite.
Yeah.
Because of the romance angle. It was just pure cringe.
Not just because of the dialogue, but the romance is cringe, but it's cringe because of the dialogue.
Yeah. So that was why, but that still is an issue for me.
Of course, yeah.
But looking at it, I
thought you were going to be like, and now I love it.
And now I love it. God.
I can see you just like, and it's still an issue.
But it is still an issue. What I now have come to appreciate a bit more is actually how much good stuff in terms of action sequences we get in that film, from the chase sequence through Coruscant to space battle Obi-Wan and Jango.
Yes.
Camino, Obi-Wan and Jango.
Yep.
That Geonosis Jedi battle was like, wow, look at him. Oh, who's he? Who's she?
The start of the Clone Wars.
And then you get all the toys that follow that as well with the backstory. It's like, oh god, it's like mind blown that all these characters are in there. Which your comment was, there's now like 20 or 10 CGI characters now.
Yeah,
I felt like you went from 15 characters in Phantom Menace to 50 characters.
Oh yes,
in Attack of the Clones, which had some gravitas to them, and everyone wanted to know a bit more about.
Yeah.
So that was another lifting element for me. I don't think I really appreciated that was obviously the kickoff, as you say, of the Clone Wars, which introduced more of these characters.
That the battle on Geonosis, like when the clone troopers turn up, I'm like, that's like some of my favourite Star Wars.
Case in point, Battlefront 2, we were just playing a bit earlier, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think one of my favourite maps on that game is the Geonosis battle.
Yeah.
Because they get that so right.
They get it so right.
It's like being in the film, because it's such an epic battle scene. And again, a few of the other games that I've played of Star Wars, they seem to really hit that battle right as well.
Yeah. It's definitely got its faults, and I'm definitely going to sound like a bit of a broken record on this podcast, but the bits that they get right, they do get it right, and like we said, the battles, some elements I'm a little bit, looking back, I'm just a bit quizzical as to their decision. I mean, I don't know why, but Obi-Wan just looks a bit off.
Yeah, like what's with the hair?
What's with their hair?
What's with their hair?
He's going through like a bit of a Is he going through a bit of a
Is
midlife crisis?
he like just pop back to the 80s or something to get
Yeah,
rid
it's
of
a
his
bit.
golden locks?
It's not throwing me off the whole thing. It's just something whenever I look at it, I'm like, who ticked that box? George,
No,
obviously, but
I'm with you on that. The hair throws me.
yeah. But I mean, Hayden Christensen
Oh God,
as an actor
you've referenced him a couple of times, I think,
is not very good.
in previous casts, and I am not an actor myself, so I do not have
No,
a place
yeah,
to
no.
critique an actor.
Oh, Hayden Christensen is infinitely a better actor than I am.
But whether it's the script he's been given,
Oh, I think
which
a mixture.
doesn't do him any justice.
Yeah.
His conviction in some of the lines.
I feel like it maybe is just
Spoiled brat, right?
Yeah, it is maybe just a little bit like what I was saying for Ahmed Best, where it is just a mixture. And I mean, like the dynamic between a director and an actor is obviously one of just like give and take, and the director is trying to get his vision across using what the actor is giving, and it is just like a concoction, really. And I don't think either party gets the concoction right.
No,
The direction's not good, and the feedback to the directing is just not good either. And it is one of the, obviously rightfully so, one of the most lambasted bits of the prequel trilogy. So, and they're not wrong. As much as I can look past a lot of things, this is one of the things where I'm just like, no, they got it right. It's pretty bad.
and yet
mainly in Attack of the
he's
Clones.
been called back.
And he's been called back, which is a nice touch because, you know, he is Anakin, right? I know
That's his role.
For whether you like Hayden Christensen in the role or not, whether you can be critical as well. And here's the thing: I think he's better in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He's just got a little bit more than, like you said, he's got a little bit of like spoilt brat, a kind of. There isn't really.
For a hero of the story, he's not a likable persona.
He's not a likable person. I feel like that's probably on purpose to a certain degree. But, yeah. I mean, I don't think his acting when he's angry about his mother's death.
So that, I'm totally on board with.
Yeah.
Like, I would flip a switch at that as well.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be...
murderous about it.
No, I wasn't going to say that. I was building up to that. You don't have to be. Well, I've said sport brat. He doesn't have to play that constant challenge and that childish nature of himself the whole way through it.
Yeah,
it just needs to come in spells.
Yeah,
you know, we need to know that there's a little bit of arrogance in him.
Yeah,
so he pushes back on Obi-Wan here. He does. It's just because it's so constant. It makes it hard for me to like that character,
of course.
Which is supposed to be one of the heroes of the story.
You're supposed to like him up until his turn, you know?
Pretty much.
Sure.
And that's, you know, because you don't like him, well, for me, because I didn't like him as much at that point, I kind of didn't feel a great deal of like, It wasn't until we started, you know, hacking at people.
I mean, we're going to get onto Revenge of the Sith, where, you know, going to get onto like the bit where George was like, yeah, just show him murdering children.
Kill the kids. Just kill the kids. We don't need them.
I mean, he did kind of corner himself in Revenge of the Sith, where
wasn't George Lucas's son in one of the
he gets killed scenes by some clone troopers.
He's out by Bail Organa, isn't he? On that bridge thing,
he did back himself into a corner a little bit, George, where he was like, yeah, no. Again, they retconned that as well, where they're like, no Jedi survived, and now like we're in 2022.
There's still like hundreds out there, aren't there?
We're in 2022, and you know, for the whole of the original trilogy, and even during like production of the prequel trilogy, he's like, yep, it's not going to be any Jedi left except for Obi-Wan and Yoda. Even up to Revenge of the Sith, you're like, yep, that's true. And now I could probably count on my hand about 5.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, technically, Ahsoka doesn't class herself as a Jedi.
Force users. Let's go. Let's go for Force users.
Let's split hairs there, I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like the acting was at its worst. This is just my opinion, but the acting was at its worst specifically for Hayden. The apex was like Attack of the Clones. I know he's not in Phantom Menace, but the apex of the bad acting.
That'd be weird if he was in Phantom Menace, wouldn't it? Like put his face on that Anakin. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that for correct reasons, it's pretty much universally panned, and I think it's better in Revenge of the Sith.
I agree.
I feel like their dynamic is better, which helps with the not so great dialogue, and it helps the not so great acting.
It's just not great from the start, though, is it? Like that elevator scene where they're going up to meet them.
It's such a just a boring interaction.
Like, you're sweating. Relax. Yeah. It's like, this is really not interesting. It's like, I haven't seen her since I was 9 years old. It's like, we know.
Yeah.
That line wasn't needed to express that, I don't think.
And imagine other movies where, imagine if you introduced Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator by him just like getting in a lift and having a conversation. Like how boring that is. I know. I'm gonna say this like one of our.
That's what was missing from the scene. The lift music.
Yeah.
The lift music would have really just elevated.
And if the lift music was or like Terminator theme. Anyway, the George Lucas is, and especially the last two, or maybe even just mainly Attack of the Clones, it is really evident that like the kind of the shots he's using and the direction, and it's just, a lot of it is just kind of like bland and boring, and like there's like no movement.
You talk about the direction and the response from Hayden. Like, even in that scene, Lift for me, they're just you're right. It's a boring scene. They're just standing there. There's no like charismatic poses. No one's leaning against the glass. No one's looking out the window or anything.
There's no character building in like
they're just standing there and talking, which is it's not.
And it's as an introduction to one of the. I know. Obviously, Anakin was in the Phantom Menace, but as a child, you now know that it's going to be Anakin just before he's Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. Darth Vader is one of the most iconic characters in cinema, and his introduction into this trilogy as a character is he's in an elevator having a conversation. Honestly, you need to just slap George Lucas around the face.
You need a cut scene to a battle scene type thing, and he's just smashing up some droids or animals, or they're taking on a giant beast or something. They talk about a nest of Gundarks or something. Why didn't we cut into that?
Yeah.
And
well, don't tell me.
And then it's a transmission from Yoda going, "Need you back on corpse."
Yeah, this is one of the things that people must be sick of us saying is "show me, don't tell me." Is like it's like fundamental for cinema because it is that medium. It is a visual medium, and this is one of those things where that what you just described is perfect. You could have shot the first. Obviously, you have the assassination attempt that starts off the movie. Then you cut to you cut to Obi-Wan first, and you have this scene developing. The details are really don't matter that much, and then Anakin is introduced by Obi-Wan saying his name rather than. I mean, forget the lift. You introduce a character and then you cut to some cool shot of Anakin being introduced to this universe.
I felt like he needed to set Anakin's a really cool Jedi at this point. He really knows what he's doing.
But they didn't do that.
But they didn't. A lift is better, obviously.
Yeah, cool. It cuts down on that budget because we're talking about CGI.
You could have bought into the whole, oh god, Anakin's sick. Look at that movement. And then it's like, oh, he's pushing back on Obi-Wan. Oh no, he thinks he's all that kind of thing. And then it makes sense. You get the whole. Well, he's pretty good. I can see where he's coming from.
We really do have a knack of like fixing films on this, but they're already broken.
I've had a long time.
I was gonna say it's that. Well, Attack of the Clones is probably this week or next week is 20 years old.
No.
Yeah.
God.
See, why does the Phantom Menace seem like a lot older film?
Yeah.
then
It's
though it's 3 years
obviously
different.
It's obviously that level of CGI, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just
even that, or
modernises
just
it
like
slightly.
when you say 1999, you're like, that's pre-millennium. That's like a long time ago. And then 3 years later, Attack of the Clones, you're like, oh, that was only like 10 years ago?
For those that don't know, that's Nokia 3310.
Yeah, exactly. 1999 is definitely Nokia 3310 territory. But the introduction of one of the most iconic characters is done in a lift, and it's such a misstep.
Definitely a bit flat. Yeah.
And that just really sums up
The film.
the directing and the acting. That scene itself, where it's just like, it was kind of like they're out of ideas on like what to do. They've just got them two in a lift, like talking, and the direction is so flat because the scene is flat and there's no camera movement. It's kind of like a little bit representative of like about 70% of like those two movies.
And who's the first person he sees? Not the person that he's been romanticizing about for the last 9 years. There's no like, oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
It's Jar Jar. God, you're still here. Okay, fine.
Honestly, whenever I see that scene, I'm just like, I have a bit of a flashback to watching Attack of the Clones for the first time and just being like, the one character you could have dropped, you could have just like we could have just like never seen him again. And I don't think they were like trying to force him in either. Like they just, just no more Jar Jar, but he still remains.
Hey ho.
Revenge of the Sith.
Definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
Possibly, I may not appease you here. I think my favorite opening sequence of any Star Wars film.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, that's great.
And the opening music as well, like the big drum beat, how it kicks off, really sets the tone.
Revenge of the Sith. The only unfortunate thing about Revenge of the Sith is the Clone Wars is such a big thing that happens in this universe. You see the start and then you see the end.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like the emotional impact of like what's happened between that is like there is a void. I know you might be like, well, the Clone Wars exists for that reason, but there's a lot of people who just watch the movies.
It kind of needs. I'm not gonna say it. No, I'm gonna take that back. I was gonna say it kind of needs a Rogue One in between Attack of the Clones and
that would have been interesting.
But I'm gonna take that back. I think Clone Wars does it justice.
Oh yeah, it does.
I totally take that back.
Yeah.
I think Clone Wars is perfect for fitting that purpose.
But the shots and, like you said, the music, is fantastic. And yeah, you're right. I feel like I don't know. Does anything really beat Episode 4? Such an iconic
the original
shot.
Star Destroyer coming. Yeah, no, I'm not denying that.
Yeah,
the spectacle of that at the time is that.
Is it your favourite?
This is my favourite.
I'd say it's my favourite.
This is my favourite.
I wouldn't say it's the okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it as just my favourite. Yeah,
it's the most hyped I've been immediately in a Star Wars film.
Oh,
I think,
yeah,
because of the dum starfighters, and then whoa, look at, God, there's so many starships around, and
following them through the battle is like such a great shot.
Yeah, no, it's
and a tremendous use of
perfect
CGI.
Way. Star Wars, literally a war in the stars.
Yeah,
right there.
I mean, it's and then to transition into they do have. Are you going
to touch on dialogue here?
Yeah, I mean, the dialogue is
because the rapport, what you were about to say, I felt was a lot what I was expecting.
Yeah,
for a brotherly kind of relationship. You know,
yeah.
Have you noticed the shields are still up? You know, the sarcasm out of everyone.
It is, yeah, I mean that is the point. Like you are taking the piss out of each other, basically. I feel like they immediately have you thinking that these two have spent 3 years together. I know they're in a war and that it's not supposed to be like fun, but because they are in such close proximity, such close quarters, that they do just have that relationship, and it's better manifested here than literally them saying, oh, they've been Padawan and Master for 10 years or something. it's more believable for those 3 years rather than than him seeing him as like a 10-year-old all the way up to.
But even like that,
18
even that kind of sequence that we were just talking about for Attack of the Clones, introducing those two would have worked.
Yeah.
Back in Attack.
Oh, 100%. That would have slotted right in if they were coming back from somewhere. You know, if they were, coming to Coruscant for that reason, in Attack of the Clones. But, I mean, it's good that they slipped it in here, because if they'd done another elevator scene, that would have just been so boring.
Just start at the elevator going up to get Palpatine.
The start of Revenge of the Sith, and, I mean, I'd say it's my favourite of the trilogy as well. There's a lot less points that I'm like, oh, that's quite bad. I think it's just a really enjoyable film. Even by itself.
Apart from, moments of dialogue that we've obviously referenced several times this evening.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything overly bad apart from the end sequence of chopping off limbs and things, and the that's the real sticking point for me. The
really?
Dialogue. Yeah, I think that kind of falls down a little bit for me. But anything else in that film, the whole, you're breaking my heart. The death by the death by broken heart or whatever that is.
I mean,
if the dialogue was that she sustained heavy injuries and they had to operate on her to save the babies, if they explain that a bit better rather than we can't explain what's happened, she's losing the will to die, losing the will to live. Lost the will to die.
Some of us are gaining the will to die.
It's like, you could have done that a bit better, I suppose.
Oh well, they could have done it a lot better.
It's just,
it is again. There are. It's just, I do find it the most enjoyable, but the
sorry, I'm nodding. I'm nodding with. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, the blemishes are quite grand. Right. Saying that she's just lost the will to live. She literally just had 2 kids.
You could have totally spun that of the injuries aspect.
They could have just
died during childbirth. That people do that. That's believable.
So, but they didn't decide to do that. They decided to actually go very Disney about it.
She just doesn't want to live anymore.
She just doesn't want to live anymore after having 2 children. I mean, that's pretty grim. Yeah. But so they're don't get me wrong. There's things like that are peppered throughout the film.
I'm quite curious as to how no one questioned where these children went.
That's true.
Because people had clearly met Padme throughout her pregnancy.
Yep.
And no one's gone,
Maybe they were told that the kids died.
Surely they'd have been...
Because, only a select few...
Surely they'd have been buried with her at that ceremony thing on Naboo, but...
We're not gonna get into lore.
We're not reworking like funeral scenes.
No, definitely not.
Sorry, most enjoyable. Absolutely, loved every planet they went to.
I know, right?
Like even the
design was
even
amazing.
the Jedi, what are we calling that? The Jedi Holocaust type event.
Yeah.
The whole. It's not the right term at all, is it?
I mean, just
the Jedi genocide.
I guess sacking of the Jedi.
Sacking of the Jedi. Yeah. So that scene from when that started, the music again, that would be my top 5. Anakin's dark deeds that really hit on the old heartstrings when I saw all the Jedi being gunned down. Because being young that we are, and you aspire to be a Jedi, impossible, but aspire to be one nonetheless. And they're all just being betrayed by the clone troopers, which you later learn in Clone Wars are actually really cool and have great characters themselves.
Something that also adds, Clone Wars also adds that the clone troopers are actually like really cool, and rather than just being these clones.
Stepping off a little bit, but people have put these scenes together now where they've meshed Order 66 in the films with the games, with the Clone Wars, with Bad Batch. Yeah, there's a Bad Batch scene in that as well. And they just meshed them all together where it kind of all collaborates, and it really hits differently now that you know what the clones are and what they've gone through, and this totally isn't their choice.
They've got their own personalities.
It really hits differently, thinking, they're just stormtroopers in disguise. They were going to do this all along, until they explain the process behind it, and it's like,
I mean, that's one of the best bits of the movie is Order 66, which, I mean, you're always curious as to how they were going to do this. But I don't think you could really make something much better than that.
No,
Yeah.
I perfectly logical.
Yeah,
It's to get your armies to kill your generals. Yeah,
it's just an absolutely, it's a great scene as well, because you transition from loads of different more locations to,
and it doesn't feel too fast either. Like
No,
it goes really quickly.
yeah.
It's only about a minute and a half of footage, I think.
Mm.
But you see what, like 10 different Jedi
Maybe
hit
yeah.
it, I think, and then a bit obviously more in the Jedi Temple, and yeah, really, the pace of that film really slows, isn't it? Because you're taking in so much damage
Yeah.
at the same time. It's like, oh no, don't kill that one, please.
It's
Not Plo Koon.
one thing that I have a bit of an issue with is the speed in which Anakin turns.
Oh yeah.
I feel like obviously, again, if you have watched the Clone Wars, like it makes that longer, but let's just keep it to the movies. I mean, Anakin in Attack of the Clones, he does hit out at like sand people who murdered his own mother, which
Justified?
even then it's like that's it's like cool motive, still murder. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's technically a police force of some sort in the galaxy.
Cool motive, still murder. But he's taken an act of revenge. Like obviously that could see him being his first step to turning to the dark side. But then if you think about it, the next thing is he beheads someone.
Right, so
who is like a general.
We're talking about Dooku, right? Aren't we?
Yeah.
So, that scene didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
The whole kill him now. I was like, but we need him alive to end the war.
Yeah.
If I kill him, the war's just gonna continue. No.
Yeah.
He's like, no, do it. It's too dangerous to be alive. Like, oh.
And then the whole, the rest of the movie just kind of it really just ramps up the transition, which I mean.
You kind of go from that straight into the scene with Padme's like, I don't feel like the Jedi I should be. I want more. And, it's that like this, like you said.
Where was this before?
Like, I know you had a bit of a dark side evident in Attack of the Clones, but
not this much.
Why is this happening to you? What we need to see a bit of outside influence on. Is Palpatine pulling some strings here? Is he using his influence to steer him a little bit? Was there a moment in...
I mean, they've only got the certain amount of time for this whole movie, but it did just feel a little bit like we have to get to that point, which is, fair enough.
It's a long film, though, isn't it? It's
It's
like 2.5 hours long, that film.
But I just felt like that was it was just a little bit too quick. Like the velocity was just a bit too much on how he got to that point of like, I'm evil now. Just like I used to. There was a little bit of evil, not evil in me, but there was like just like rage and anger.
I've been pushed over now. I can't. I think if you were to view it as, the secret, the scene where you're on the council but you're not currently the ranking master. That's a weird thing for him to get upset about. I think.
Yeah.
The whole we want you to spy on your friend and mentor. I could see that totally being a key factor in. I don't think you guys are as good as you make out. If they'd made more of that, I think as part of his journey to
they should have built the foundation on that rather than kind of really skipping over it after a little while.
And the whole considering how quickly he beheaded Dooku for being a Sith Lord and pretty much just had a conversation with Palpatine about
that's one thing as well where I'm just like I know they have been talking since they've been in close proximity for years, but in terms of what we actually see as an audience is quite minimal, and he is kind of swayed by one conversation.
And it's kind of like if that guy is the big bad who the Jedi seem to understand is behind everything, including the separatist movement. You'd think, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to call for backup. Just don't move.
Yeah.
Okay. that's how that probably should have played out in a sensible scenario.
In
He'd
not an action movie.
or he'd have tried to take him on himself.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He probably would have lost that fight, wouldn't he?
Yeah. But so it was just something that only in hindsight am I able to just be like, could have just reworked it just a little bit. But again, it's still an enjoyable movie. I mean, the action from the very beginning, is good.
Elevated from Attack of the Clones, I think.
Yeah.
Every battle was a notch up on the last film.
But yeah, even lightsaber battle, even as brief as the lightsaber battle is at the beginning.
Yeah.
I like that, even though it's double spoiled for me.
Obi-Wan just needs to learn not to take on Dooku. He's clearly crap at going against Dooku, isn't he?
And then, what can you say about the final battle, the lightsaber fight that had to live up to expectations? So long in the making, they had their initial fight in 1977, so
so underwhelming. Like, when you look at it, someone's done a remake of that battle, haven't they? Like, which looks amazing. But that battle of like just flicking the lightsabers in A New Hope, basically. Isn't it? And I appreciate the technology was very, very different back then, but man, that battle on Mustafar was on another level, and
I could watch it any day of the week.
It's what I'm going to say.
Being entertained.
It's the music again. It's the choreography, and it's the stakes as well, isn't it? You really feel that this is the good and evil.
Yeah, this is it.
Of
well, they're basically fighting for Anakin's life, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just if any of the three main aspects, I'm talking like the camera work, the choreography, the music, if any of them were not top notch, this is the payoff of 6 movies. This is the payoff of like people have had this in their heads of what it'd be like for years, and if any of those had been like mid, it would have been a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, and you could tell how hard they worked.
It's because they put months into that choreography of that fight, didn't they? And
I think they did it for a year.
Even the Yoda and Palpatine fight, which is, I'm assuming, pretty much all CGI bar a couple of scenes. That still had a pretty red and green, classic bad and good colours up against each other. And I thought you were going to touch on it on Attack of the Clones, where the flipping Yoda around Dooku.
See, you know what? I don't really mind it. But people absolutely hate it.
But at the time, I was like, Yoda, yeah. Like, and he whips out that. Well, doesn't whip out. He grabs it, like the Force pulls it out, doesn't he? It's like, oh shit, Yoda's about to go, and then he does all this backflip, and it's like, hang on a minute, you walk with a cane.
Yeah.
Like, where's this coming from?
I don't mind it, and especially again, it was just probably because I was just of the age where I was just like that. He's just doing cool shit.
But yeah, I totally agree. I was blown away by the lightsaber fights in that film.
And for them to interchange, the main fight with something else was bold, because breaking the scene up was probably a good idea, but from a cinematic standpoint, from a film standpoint, but
it was quite different as well, because in every Star Wars movie, you've got a big battle, haven't you, with various forces at play.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, you'd had your big battle at the beginning.
Yeah.
All right, the Jedi had died halfway through. But in the end, it's literally just 2 separate fights, isn't it? There's no.
That's what it goes down to.
There's no armies against armies there.
No, and it's great because there is obviously, especially with the music and the action, there's like an air of like hopelessness, because we already know what's going to happen. There's a little bit in you that's just
we know what's going to happen. I didn't quite visualize it as brutal as they went through with it. I was like, oh my god.
You are kind of saying to yourself, it's like, I'm watching Yoda fight Palpatine and Obi-Wan fight Anakin, but you know in the end what happens, and it's just like that just adds to like the despair.
It's a bit not disappointing, disheartening, knowing the amount of effort they're putting into this and how cool it looks and how.
I would love to have been someone who just had not seen the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It was just like, I wonder how they're gonna like save him. I wonder how that's gonna happen. Nope, because obviously it has to have one of the most dour endings to a film ever.
That was the kicker for me with this film.
Yeah.
Just going into it knowing that this is going to set up A New Hope and set things in motion. I thought, oh. But yeah, loved it.
I mean, so you didn't like the fact that Obi-Wan cut someone who he said he loves, like, all of his limbs off bar one.
It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was more I wasn't expecting it to be quite so brutal.
Yeah.
You know, I thought he was just going to take his other arm off, or something lesser than that. Maybe if there was something to do less than that. I wasn't expecting the arm's leg sitting next to a lava river, honestly, catching on fire. Like, they didn't hold back on disfiguring him at all, did they?
No, it was very like, we're going from 0 to 10.
We've got to make this guy look like a bad guy now.
Yeah.
We're gonna burn him. We're gonna chop his legs off.
This is his transition to Vader. Yeah.
And same with like Palpatine and Mace Windu, which again, that was a really good fight as well. I thought. I saw some of the behind the scenes footage on that as well, and Samuel Jackson's his usual like charismatic self.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like direct this. Forgive me, I can't remember the name of Palpatine, but like direct him.
Ian McDermott.
Yeah, Ian McDermott on the movements and trying to make him feel a bit more comfortable with it, kind of thing. Cute note was that I really love that Samuel Jackson has "bad motherfucker" written on his
on the lightsaber. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are spoiled a little bit with lightsaber fights in this movie. I don't think there's any particularly disappointing. I mean, the Jedis that accompany Mace Windu go out.
They are disappointing.
They go out like
and again
like rubbish.
You get some good. So who's there? You got Kit Fisto. A couple of I know the others because I got their figures, but you've got a couple of others who Jedi Council worthy.
Yeah. They all go out in seconds.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Disappointing.
He's not like Palpatine's not that good.
Yeah, he's just a master manipulator.
Yeah,
I wouldn't, again, not to get too lore deep, but I don't particularly know. It's not been established at that point that he's like great with a lightsaber,
no.
Better than like these council members and like on par with Mace Windu. I don't know. That one was just a little bit like, they went out a little bit. I mean, why did they didn't need to be in the scene,
It was kind of that's where the scene should have been. Mace, I'm with Palpatine. He's told me this.
Yeah,
and he just runs straight over and pops up. That would have made a little bit of sense for me, but no, the backup needs to go. You need to have some of the. You need to show Palpatine in his powerful state. Position him in above or at Mace Windu's level at least. Which again, I don't know if that was part of the plot choice if Sidious was playing the part of making Mace Windu, longing out that battle to make Anakin arrive because he knew Anakin would come back. Yeah. So he'd need to witness. Sorry,
it's a good idea. Yeah.
So that makes sense, I suppose.
Still manipulating
a little bit, maybe like a couple of lightsaber hits from each of the fallen council members.
Yeah.
Just give them a bit of credit, I mean, they turned up to,
I think 2 die without a hit, don't they? So it's like, that's a bit ridiculous.
Well, Palpatine literally stands in front of all 4 of them. And I think, how it should have ended, do it best.
Yeah.
Where all 4 of them just start slashing at him together. It's like that's all they had to do.
Yeah. I mean, it still served its purpose in terms of like you said rightly. He's probably just manipulating the scenario to be like, okay, I could kill all these. I could probably kill maybe if he could, I could kill Mace Windu as well, but it'd be more effective for turning Anakin completely
if he sees
if I play out this scenario. But I mean, it's that last half hour or so for the movie is really like you're witnessing the beginning of the Empire, and you're witnessing the transition and the real meat and potatoes of Anakin becoming Darth Vader. And I say last half hour, probably about 45 minutes, because the fight with Obi-Wan is about 20 minutes, so rightly so. And the fight, the choreography in it, and just they break it up quite well, because they have like the bit at the beginning where it's like they're going full tilt against each other, but then it's broken up with like the environment. Like I think the shields go off, don't they?
Yeah,
so
it
like the
starts
lava
starts
becomes
sinking, doesn't it?
the lava becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Which, who would have thought it on a planet full of lava? The lava will become
pick a mannequin, can't you?
But and then Ewan McGregor does well, I think, with what he's given. I like the
we're on to dialogue now.
Yeah. He's just a great actor. Like his performances in all three.
He's convincing.
I don't think they're that bad at all. Don't think they're bad.
No, I'd agree with you.
Yeah. He's a shining light in the acting department.
Well, I think that's why everyone's so keen to have him back.
Yeah, I know.
If it was Hayden Christensen's series coming back, it'd be like, okay.
It's just a Padme prequel series. Set in between episode 1, 2, and 2,
Yeah, I think for me the dialogue,
Senator years.
The dialogue is at my most grating in the last 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
What way he's just like,
this is the end for you, my master. It's like, you wouldn't say
oh yeah, okay.
Anakin's
Anakin's dialogue and Obi-Wan's dialogue, they're like separate scenes.
Yeah, okay.
They're like written by separate people.
Yeah, I'd hope so, but yeah.
So, but
and then
it still doesn't take away from the fight.
No, not in the slightest. And then you then get towards the end of the film, which we separate Luke and Leia, don't we?
We do.
Dying because she's lost the will to live, but has enough energy to name her children.
Yep.
Thankfully.
Like, doesn't love them enough to stay alive.
No.
And it sounds like pretty dark, but I'm a little bit like, well, not enough. If you're telling me that she's giving up on life, that's her death, but yet she was just like, I've got enough love for my children to give them names, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it just needed a quick little scan from R2 to C3PO's, like her heart rate's dropping.
Yeah, she's dying.
Yeah, she's dying.
It's just such simple, but we didn't get it. No. It's all right.
And then the Bail Organa bit,
I mean, the little tease of Qui-Gon Jinn as well, didn't they? Did a little tease.
Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon.
I mean, are we expecting him to be in Obi-Wan? No, I don't think so.
Voiceover.
I
could see him being a voiceover in it.
I think he did a little bit of voiceover for Clone Wars, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or he at least did a little bit of voice for last scene in Rise of Skywalker, where it's all the Jedi.
Yeah.
I think he did a voiceover in that.
That scene could have gone a bit differently too.
But yeah, Liam Neeson.
Sorry, I don't know that. I hope he's back. It makes sense for him. He's still well and fit to do the role, nice. Isn't he? Even as I don't know if Force Ghosts didn't stick well with me in Last Jedi.
No.
It didn't feel the same as Yoda and Obi-Wan in Empire and Return of the Jedi. I don't think.
No, it didn't even reach that quite. But if he is in this, that'd be a nice surprise.
Yeah.
But I can understand if he was just like, well, I'm not doing it just for a cameo.
Well, I would imagine that series is going to be about him realizing his purpose and the significance of Duke. Hopefully, and hopefully it's not over in the space of 6 episodes, isn't it? So
it is 6 episodes.
Hopefully, it's not over in the space of a day. You'd hope it would last for a longer period than that. But.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go for the ratings.
So are we doing?
We're going to do each one, obviously.
Right, okay.
Just got to work out what we're going to do it out of, though. Right. So, Phantom Menace. Let's do it out of 5.
5 invincible pod race drivers.
Yeah, that's fine by me. Yeah, 5 undying pod racers. Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah. So for the Phantom Menace, what do you give it out of 5?
For the sheer joy that it brought me at the time, I would say a 3.
Righty-ho.
If I had everyone screaming at me, all the critique, I'd probably go 2.75.
Okay. Mate, let's round that down to 2.5.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd probably give it the same, actually. I'm going to give it a 2.5, though.
Okay.
Just because... Yeah, I couldn't really give it a lot more.
I think that's fair.
I'd probably say the same.
I think that's fair, but I'm biased on my.
Because
it was, as I said, I feel like that one was made for me.
Actually, no, I've changed my mind straight away. I'm going to give it a 3.
Okay.
Right, okay. I'm going to give it a 3 as well. So you're giving it a 3 or 2.5?
Yeah, I'll bend. I'll go 3.
Yeah, both for 3. That's all right. What are you going to go? What Attack of the Clones? What I do for? Let's do it out of. Let's do out of 5 CGI mustaches that we didn't know existed.
Dex's mustaches that were not there.
Yeah, that's it. Like out of 5 Dex mustaches. Yeah.
The dialogue really hits me on this one.
This is the reason why I think I went lower. I went higher. Sorry for Phantom Menace.
But the battle sequences. 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 2.5 as well. Yeah. I just had to kind of stop myself there because if I give the Phantom Menace a 2.5,
then this has got.
Then I've either got to give Attack of the Clones 2.5, the same as Phantom Menace, or
I've totally contradicted myself there because I've given Phantom Menace a 3.
Yeah.
And I said right at the beginning of this that Attack of the Clones has totally swayed me. I'm now pre-ordering, but I think since we've discussed it more and I've digested it again, maybe it's
got to be.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
It's got to be 2.5.
2.5.
And Revenge of the Sith, let's give it out of. What's a really? Let's give Revenge of the Sith out of 5.
Wills to live.
Coughing androids.
Coughing androids.
Coughing General Grievuses. Yeah, coughing androids. Yeah.
Coughing General Grievuses.
Like, why has he got a cough? He's a robot. I know he's not a robot. he was an organism.
There you go. He's.
We didn't really talk about General Grievous. I feel like
he's more machine now than man.
I feel like General Grievous was just a bit of a missed opportunity.
They totally could have done a series on him.
Could have done a series. Could have done. Could have just. I mean, he just.
Did you get to the Clone Wars episode where you go to his lair and learn about all his history? It's like a predator, isn't he?
He is there.
Like the hero gladiator type person.
Yeah, but yeah, they just turn him into a bit of a boob, just a bit of a just a bit of a nothing,
bit of bantha fodder.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's do out of 5 coughing androids.
Well, my favourite. I don't feel. I know I'm not going to be shy about it. I put it as a 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna give it. Nearly gave it a 4. Gonna give it a 3.5 as well. Yeah, 4 is just like.
I mean, if it was just the lightsaber battles, it's a 5.
Yeah,
hands down a 5. Like best lightsaber battles in the world. But
there are some points that really do drag it. So yeah, I'll have to give it a 3.5 as well. All in all, I feel like the prequel trilogy has gone through like a bit of like it itself, not unlike the films that are inside it, have gone through such a roller coaster, with having the Clone Wars kind of reaffirm how good it can be, how good the prequels can be, to like very valid criticism on some very terrible cinema.
Yes. It's like storytelling, dialogue, but Star Wars.
Yeah, but like look at how good the Star Wars can be. But yeah, it's been a weird thing to kind of. I've been thinking about it like most of the week and just how. Yeah, it's just.
I appreciate them more.
Yeah, I don't think there's many trilogies or even many movies that go through such an up and down period of like post release euphoria and then like such a low drop, being people like when the Phantom Menace came out being like, oh, it's ruined Star Wars XYZ. We're not of that ilk.
No,
but
I would imagine a lot of people are rewatching them now. Ahead of Kenobi to get back into the swing of it all. And I'm definitely going to save Revenge of the Sith to the week before, I think.
Yeah. Coming out, what was it, the 27th? We're actually getting 2 episodes for the start off as well, so that's quite nice.
Bloody well hope so.
Yeah. Should bloody well hope so, mate. Yeah, it's the prequels will always be its own in its own realm, I think, for us.
Yeah.
And it's great to look back at the good things, but you know, I'm not quite having to block out the bad things quite like certain bits of the sequel trilogy, but at least the prequel trilogy didn't have a your mama joke in it. As bad as Jar Jar Binks was, it didn't. The film won no prequel. I will take. Look, this is it, right? I'll take elevator shots. I'll take Jar Jar being as ridiculous. I'll take some of this bad CGI that's like aged terribly, but at least the movie didn't start off with one character phone calling another one to tell him a your mama joke. Nice.
May the 4th be with you.
The Force will be with you, always.